I always, when I open a webinar, it's always fun watching all the attendees coming in. So hello, everyone, as you're joining us here. Um, just real quick, I'm Julie Slavinsky. I'm the Director of Events for Warwick's Bookstore, as my little sign there says, since 1896. So we've been around for a little while, 128 years going strong. And we're just so thrilled tonight to be with Patricia Cornwell and Dan Aykroyd. So thank you all for joining us. We're located in San Diego. I think I might have said that. But before we get started with the official event, I want to let everyone know that Warwick's has signed copies of Identity Unknown while supplies last. So please head over to our website and place your order for those. Also, as you're getting settled in, we are recording tonight's event. So you can see this on Warwick's YouTube channel after if you have to step away or if you weren't able to make it to the live event. But so now to the main attraction and why we're here. Patricia Cornwell is a #1 New York Times best-selling author, widely considered one of the world's top crime writers. To date, her books have sold more than 120 million copies in 36 languages in more than 120 countries. Identity Unknown is the latest installment of Cornwell's mega best-selling K. Scarpetta series. Amazon Prime Video is adapting the series, which begins filming this fall with a star-studded cast, including Jamie Lee Curtis and Nicole Kidman. Patricia's guest this evening is a writer and an actor who has been lauded all over the world for bringing joy to the masses by creating characters we all know and love. He is a Ghostbuster, a Blues Brother, an original member of Saturday Night Live, and the creator of Crystal Head Vodka, an award-winning vodka which is sold in over 75 countries. Please welcome Patricia Cornwell and her friend Dan Aykroyd. You two have a wonderful conversation.
Thank you, Julie, and hello, everybody. And that wonderful Crystal Head vodka, I have a beautiful bottle right behind me, right next to a brick from the FBI where I ran the Yellow Brick Road a long time ago. And I have to also tell everyone that Danny is one of my favorite people on the planet.
Likewise.
I've known you for over 20 years, and I have to read something first because you all are in for a real surprise when you get to page 44 in Identity Unknown. And this is Marino talking. He's talking to Scarpetta. Marino's in a bad mood. He and Dorothy, AKA Jamie Lee Curtis, not getting along so well at the moment. And this is what Marino, he has an explanation for the bad weekend he had. Atlantic City isn't a change of scenery that I'm looking for, he says. And who gives a shit about winning thousands of pennies? Marino replies grumpily because Dorothy's been busy in the casino. That was Sunday. Last night, it was a Blues Brothers concert where she walked right up to Dan Aykroyd and asked him to autograph her onesie, which would have pissed me off if it had been anybody else. You see what a fan Marino is of you?
Well, yeah, and he also put mini vodka bottles up for Christmas ornaments.
He does do that. He gets your little Crystal Head vodka bottles,
yes.
and when they're empty, he makes little Christmas lights out of them and strings them all around his house.
Love those tributes. Thank you so much. And I enjoyed Identity Unknown, of course, with all Patsy's books. You really don't know who or what until the end, and it's all just laid out so beautifully and with all kinds of other great tangents from where to go with the series. I just really enjoyed it, and I don't want to talk about the characters that may or may not appear or reappear. I don't want to give away anything, but no, this is a real special one. It just crackles, and it's got some great images where the body is found. For instance, that place where the body is found. I love abandoned places and ruins,
Especially
and Identity Unknown features a spectacular abandoned American ruin. But that's just worth the price of the read alone. People are really going to enjoy this book. Really. Yeah.
Well, one thing that a lot of people don't know, and I want us to get into this a little bit, is that this whole business about UAPs and UFOs, the search for extraterrestrial life, when you see this Yellow Brick Road on this is where the victim is found at this abandoned Oz theme park, and it appears that this person, who's someone who's talked to SETI and trying to talk to extraterrestrials, it seems like he might have been dropped out of a UFO, and that's how he's killed. Now, don't get too upset, everybody. You're going to find out there's a logical explanation for everything. But what I wanted to start with is to say that, Danny, you're one of the main reasons I got so interested in all this. About 7 or 8 years ago, I looked at a file that you had created where you were gathering all this information about unidentified flying objects, UFOs, UAPs, whatever people want to call them. And but you've had some real experiences with some of this, haven't you? I remember hearing you talk.
Well, I've seen four, what I would say are, well, two unambiguous sightings, and then two that, we could argue about spatial objects and bolides and that, but there might be, I don't think there's any doubt in my mind, but I had two unambiguous sightings. I'll speak of them, but first of all, my mother saw one in 1947 on the Sparks Street Mall in Ottawa. She was working for the Ministry of Defense, and she worked in World War II on Hurricane aircraft production schedules for the fuselages. So she knew aircraft and aircraft charts. And she was walking down the street around dusk, and she saw something twinkle in the sky about 50 feet above the street. And she described it as an orb. She said it looked like a Christmas ornament, and it was blinking red, green, white, red, green, white, like that. And it was quite sizable, she said, maybe more than 20 feet in diameter. And it just sat there, and she watched it, and there was no one else around. She just looked at it. And again, she knew aircraft, so she knew it wasn't that. And then she said it just zipped off into the night and vanished. So she was always very interested in this stuff, And around our home there, we had the Look magazine with Elizabeth Taylor on the cover, which discussed the Barney and Betty Hill abductions. And we had the Marilyn Monroe Life magazine, where they had an article on flying saucers in there. So she kind of collected stuff. She didn't talk much about it, but it certainly got me interested. And I had an unambiguous sighting. Well, I was with Donna and Martha's Vineyard for the first two, and it was 4 a.m, and I got up to go outside on the deck, actually, to relieve my bladder. And I looked up in the sky, and I saw two bright glowing objects about 100,000 feet up. And they were moving fast in echelon formation. They would be the size of a quarter, glowing, bright yellow, moving in echelon formation. They did a zigzag across the sky. I called my two friends, I called Donna. We all saw them do this incredible high-speed zigzag from horizon to horizon. They were going probably 20,000 miles an hour. And, you can see 100,000 feet up at night. That's where the Concorde makes its turn at 47,000 feet. So anything above that would be visible, even in aircraft or satellite. And these were traveling. That was the first one. And then I was an interesting one because there were no lights on it. I was in Montreal, Canada. It was about 4 p.m. I was having tea with a friend. We were sitting in this hotel room on the 20th floor of the Queen Elizabeth Hotel, and we were watching spiders go up and down on the outside of the building. We were laughing at that, these little spiders going up and down. And all of a sudden, my friend goes, "What's that?" And we look out the window, and right there, just 20 feet off the window, is a big gray triangle, maybe 150 feet long, probably 50 feet across, 20 feet high. And underneath were these globes, bulbous grape-like clusters. And it was gray, no lights or anything. It just sat there and hovered for us to get a really good look at it. About a minute and a half, we were able to see it. And then we ran out into the hall. As it turned, we ran out into the hall, and there was a window at the back of the hotel. We watched it just drift slowly over the St. Lawrence River and disappear, gray, nondescript. And of course, we were like little kids, and you never forget something like that. And subsequently, I guess it was a couple of years later, I was at my farm. I was on my police bike, and I was going into town for dinner with a friend. It was about 8 p.m, and I saw on the next farm over, there's power lines there, and I saw a red blinking light just going along the top of the power lines. And that's, well, they have helicopters that survey them all the time to make sure they're still intact. And I'm thinking, but not at night. It goes, about a half mile. It makes a turn at the lake, and it comes right over me, and it stops about 70 feet above me. And I'm begging to hear helicopter motor wop. I'm begging to hear rotor wop. But there's no sound. See, and I'm looking up at it. It seems to have structure. It's ill-defined. Do I see plexi, aluminum? It's definitely a structural thing, making no sound, looking very much like a Eurocopter front, but no sound, no rotor wop, nothing. And then it shines a light on me.
Mm.
Prior to that, though, I had turned on my wigwags on the police bike. As soon as I saw it turn at the lake, I turned on those wigwags on the old cop bike there, and it stopped right above me. It turned a light right on me for maybe a second or two or three, and then the light went off, and I just watched as it went over the field and just drifted again sideways away, soundless. And the one light on it was that one little blinking red light. So those are two. I know I'm ambiguous. The one in Montreal, for sure, that's not a plane. It's a hovering gray object that had flight control by intelligent means and had no sound and no visible means of propulsion or anything like that. Likewise with the other one, it looked like it had some kind of conventional structure, but there was no sound, and it just stood. A helicopter hovering over you is going to blow you away. This didn't happen. And then there were the two in Martha's Vineyard. So those are my experiences that I feel quite sure that these were not of earthly manufacture. None of the ones I saw.
Well, that I've had two sightings. One was out in Malibu, something going over the water that woke me up at 3 a.m. with lights flashing. And then Stacy and I saw something really weird in Cape Cod. These orbs they were sort of like almost dancing. They would chase each other and go in and out, and you could see the clouds through them. And in both of those cases, there was no sound at all. It was dead silent. And you go, I don't know what this is, but it's something I've
Begging.
never seen. Yeah, but I have to say, I have a feeling this extraterrestrial community out there is looking for you. I mean, they're shining a light on you. Maybe they want you to star in a movie about them or something. I don't know, but
Well, I certainly feel like an alien. I'm a heterochromiac syndactylate. I have two different colored eyes, and I have webbed toes on both feet, the middle of both feet. So I definitely feel like an alien. No, but back to your book. There was a very famous case. I don't even mention the guy's name, but it was in Pennsylvania. I will say that, in a county there, and it pretty much, it looks like there's no other explanation other than he was dropped from a great height. Without and they checked for airplanes going over at that time, and roughly the time he would have been dropped, and he died in a tree, quite crumpled in a tree. And in that county, the sheriffs they don't want to talk about that case. So your book hews very close to that type of death.
well, you know what?
Story.
When you talked about your mother having this sighting in 1947,
Yeah.
isn't that about the same time that Roswell happened?
It was, and yes, and Roswell, and I think Aztec, New Mexico. There were all kinds of things going on in the late 40s. Kenneth Arnold's famous sighting. But let's face it here now. These objects have been coming and going as long as our planet has existed, and there was a young Soviet scientist named Nikolai Kardashev, and there was a convention, I think it was in the 70s over there in the Soviet Union, a space convention, and he came up with a 3-tier model. He said, well, a type 1 civilization would be the civilization that has harnessed all of the energy on their planet. Well, that's us. We're type 1. We basically, with uranium and mining, and we've harnessed most of it, or we know how to. The second civilization, type 2, has harnessed all of the energy in the solar system. Okay, that would be extremely more advanced than us. Then a type 3 civilization, the most advanced, have harnessed all of the energy in their galaxy. So those are the guys that are zipping around in these things. They've figured out how to harness particle physics in a way that they can manage the energy to do basically anything they want, create microwaves, gravity bubbles, and go wherever they want instantly, traveling on highways of particles, perhaps. We may know someday, but right now I think they're not going to give us that knowledge. Although,
Well,
wouldn't it be generous of them to do so? Because we could purify water, we could do water and power for disadvantaged peoples all over the world. There'd be cures for famine. They could come with a magnet and take all the automatic weapons up from people who are bad, and but they're not going to do that. I think they're going to leave Earth to our own devices, unfortunately.
well, maybe that will be true. I tend to be a little bit more optimistic.
Not me.
I know, I know, but you know more than I do. But what do you think about Roswell? Because I'm intrigued by that case. Do you think that?
Well, I believe Roswell had happened. From all I knew, Stanton Friedman quite well. He was an excellent researcher. He was the leading authority. But Luis Elizondo has a book out now called Imminent,
Yep.
and pretty much he, being part of the defense establishment and very cautionary about UAPs, he's not sure they're exactly all benign. He declares in there from his sources and contacts that Roswell was in fact real, and it kind of just dovetails with what I've been reading and hearing over the years. The nurses that came in and helped treat the mortician who was called for the small coffins, all of that. These people weren't lying. Yeah, they weren't lying. And then the Lonnie Zamora case, which is in Todd Graff's book. I think I gave it to you to take with you. UFO, the government search for extraterrestrials here and out there. Garrett Graff. He speaks about the Lonnie Zamora. He writes about Lonnie Zamora, the New Mexico patrolman who saw not only a craft but creatures get out and then blast off and go away. So, to me, as a writer and being in show business, it is immensely entertaining. That's why I love it. It's so entertaining. One of my favorite movies is The Day the Earth Stood Still, the original one. Yeah, that's a great one. And then,
yeah,
huh?
we watched that at your house when I was
Yeah,
there.
I know. I made you watch that. I compel people to watch that.
But in Identity Unknown, I have Scarpetta remembering when she was at this National Museum, where they have all the pathology specimens. It used to be at Walter Reed Hospital, place I've been several times. And what she's remembering about coming across this Roswell file that was misfiled in the dungeons of this old museum,
Such a great scene. Beautiful scene.
And how the curator acts really bizarre when she brings it up and he says it's a joke. Well, I got that idea because I had that happen to me when I was at that same museum. They took me back, and it may just all be silly, but they took me in this back storage room that was not open to the public because I wanted to see the artifacts from Abraham Lincoln's assassination. And so they brought out the specimens, which was a piece of skull from his autopsy and the bullet removed from his brain, which was overwhelming to be holding these in my hands. And that. And while I was doing that, I looked and I saw a drawer over here off in the corner, and it was all taped shut and had a big red label on it that said, "Do not open." Well, naturally, I went over that way because you know me. And when I looked, the label on it said Roswell. And so I pointed at it to the curator and I went, what is this? And she got a weird look on her face. And she said, "Oh, that's just a joke." But Stacy was with me, and we both went away later and said, that didn't seem like a joke. And furthermore, nothing in that museum was funny. I mean, you're talking about specimens of amputated limbs from the Civil War with musket balls in them and all kinds of birth defects and anomalies. And it is not for the faint of heart, this place. It's not at Walter Reed. It's moved since then. But that got me. I mean, that really haunted me. And the other thing, when I was doing work with the Armed Forces medical examiners, now they're the federal medical examiners. And for example, when the Columbia Space Shuttle disintegrated upon reentry, they're the ones that go out, to collect the remains and do this. They do all military deaths and things like that. Well, I was with them, and this death investigator who worked for them, who'd been there a long time, I said, you must have seen some weird things in your time. He said, well, the weirdest thing is I was out in the desert, called out to a crash, and I went and did this hangar. And he said, and I can't really tell you the details because I'm not allowed. He said, but let me just say this. The stuff I saw in there was not normal. It was not any normal stuff that you see from regular crashes or air, and I remember it flashed in my head. Is he talking about what I think he is? Because it sounded like he was talking about something that was not of human origin. Now, I don't know. There's no proof for any of that, but all of these things started getting my antenna going up. And then doing all the research with NASA. And when I went to the Green Bank Telescope in West Virginia, which is the biggest movable radio telescope in the world, it's like 100 meters wide and as tall as the Statue of Liberty.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked every one of the astronomers, because that thing is sweeping the universe, it's picking up stuff light years away. And I said, you're seeing everything out there, or a lot of things out there. Do you think there's anything beyond us, any intelligent life beyond us? And every single one of them said, absolutely. No question about it. And I guess the big thing is, how are we supposed to react to that as humans? I mean, how do you react to that? What's your feeling about it?
It depends upon the intentions of these intelligent beings. Absolutely, it depends upon the intentions and how they are perceiving us and our defensive capabilities. A big part of Elizondo's reservation and many other people in military is the fact that our nuclear assets as humans, both Russian and American, have been compromised several times by these craft that come. Whole shutdowns of missile systems have occurred a few times, so that's a little alarming. My theory is, I'll tell you a great story about bodies in a minute, but my view of it is that planet Earth is probably one of the most beautiful places in the entire multiverse. I mean, look at this planet we live on. Oceans, the purple majesty of the mountains, the fields, the things we've created. Hey, the song Satisfaction, Keith Richards alone makes the planet worth existing. And so you look at this planet, and there's so much here to come and see as a tourist. So I think a lot of it is they come as tourists, they come and they see us as amusement. And I think some of them have that intention. There's a theory that they're secretly mining metals here, beryllium, tungsten, all the things that are important for aerospace. There's a theory that they're robbing us of resources. There's many theories pointing to the abduction of humankind by these powerful beings. So I'd like to believe the tourist theory, but I think might be other things going on here.
Well, this maybe again, this is my Pollyanna wishful thinking, but when I read, and I know you've probably read this, Francis Crick, who Watson and Crick won the Nobel Prize for discovering the molecular structure of DNA. So Francis Crick, a Nobel Prize winner for science, he wrote a paper in the 1970s, a science paper about directed panspermia, in which he hypothesizes that all the life on Earth was seeded by a very sophisticated society of beings from elsewhere, kind of the Johnny Appleseed story. And by the way, we're doing similar things now by creating DNA data banks that will go to places like the moon and Mars in case this planet blows up or doesn't exist anymore. Yeah. But my theory is, if something had any input in the creation of humans, look at evolution. We know that we didn't start out like this. If there is something that went on there may be these beings that come back because they're interested in us, because they have something to do with us. And if
that's an extremely sound theory, Patricia. Absolutely, they're coming back to check on us and see how the growth is. Some of them, again, some were not the seeders. I think some were the seeders, and then there's other species that had nothing to do with that. But one of the favorite movies I understand of NASA personnel is the movie Mission to Mars with Timothy Robbins, which postulates exactly that the civilizations of Mars, when they existed, somehow seeded Earth here. But I think there's so many different species and kinds of ships going. The Navy reporting, these spheres and these cubes within spheres and triangles and deltas and orbs, and God knows it's a I don't know, kind of a almost H.P. Lovecraft graphic, if you think about it. All these wonderful shapes that they appear in, and I think they come from all over. I think they're coming from wormholes and black holes and places that are near us and that are far away from us. And also interdimensional travel must not be discounted here, because if you've harnessed all the energy in your galaxy or even your universe, you're going to be able to have these devices and go anywhere you want, anytime, and do amazing and maybe, as some believe, dangerous things with them.
Yeah, well, I'm going to hope that, but you know what you say makes sense, because if you look at humans on Earth, there's a huge difference between us in terms of those that seem to maybe be sort of very prone to violence and wanting to take over other people, and other people who aren't as much that way. I mean, I don't need to name names with cultures that have huge variations, and I've often wondered, do they come to some of these people? Do some of us come from a different source when they seem so different? I mean, I don't know whether you're talking about America or North Korea or Russia or the Middle East. I mean, you would wonder if there could be different sources that have had influence on humanity. And by the way, if there are people here that aren't good, it stands to reason there may be entities elsewhere that aren't good either.
Oh, I don't think they're all good by any means.
I mean, just
No,
Darth
no,
Vader.
no, not
Yeah.
after you read the case about this guy in Pennsylvania, not after you read the cases that happened down there in Brazil, on the coast down there, and I think it was the 70s. Just people were being burned, they got cancers, these vessels came and they abused an entire colony in Brazil. And Luis Elizondo's book, Imminent, outlines that episode. I think Corrales, Brazil it was. No, they're not. They're not all good. So let's be vigilant in terms of defense, but let's hope optimistically, as I guess you can, and I sometimes have trouble doing. It's going to be extremely entertaining to see what happens when the great revelation comes, when there's some mass sighting that is just indisputable. Say, 100,000 people see it at a baseball game. Well, that's happened actually in Florence. There was an angel hair in '57, I believe, in a soccer stadium in Italy. I think it was Florence. There was an angel hair event where this big, huge cigar-shaped object hovered over the stadium, and it dropped this kind of white, foamy substance that was very stringy, and that lasted for a while. It didn't evaporate right away. So, I think everybody there in that stadium is a believer today.
Well, what I ponder is, why do people, their first reaction is to have such a difficult time with this subject? And I know fear is some of it, because, when you talk about entities like that might not be friendly, that's pretty darn scary, because we're no match for them. But I also say, if they wanted to do something really bad, and maybe they have in certain corners of the world, but if they really wanted to do something, they certainly could. And it doesn't seem like they really have. But I think that a lot of people just have trouble with the notion that there could be intelligent life that is superior to us. Whereas would like to know that that's true, because I'd like to think there's something better than we are, especially when I watch the news these days. But I had a little talk with Avi Loeb the other night, who's the Harvard
Sure.
world famous astronomer, astrophysicist.
Wonderful.
And we were talking about all this sort of thing. And one of the things that he says in his book Interstellar that I think is so interesting, that he basically says that humans would be the D list. We to these beings, we might almost seem silly. But so what's the positive note out of this? The positive note, if there are things that are superior to us, and some people, you can think of God, that's the ultimate, it should make you want to do better. It should make you aim higher. It should make you aspire to be more highly evolved when you leave this earth than you were when you got here, because maybe we can do better, and maybe we can be a whole lot smarter. And what I wish we could do is start utilizing, working on these technologies more, but we spend so much of our money, unfortunately, on wars, fighting with each other, that look at the space program, and we haven't been back to the moon since the 1970s, which is really just astonishing that we haven't been able to do that.
Yeah. Well, with regards to the money that that we could spend on technologies, we need a more if indeed they're going to help us, it's time for them to come in for a more direct intervention. I think we really need that now, because we're not going to do it on our own. These unsolvable problems in the Middle East and also in the States with the abundance of automatic weapons. These are problems that they're unsolvable on almost. If you took away all the weapons or stopped making all of the automatic weapons now, full on machine guns that no one needs except army and police. I don't think anyway. I can do some damage with a good old 38 revolver, but these weapons, if you took them away or removed all the manufacturers now, there's enough there for 100 years of exploitation of the automatic weapon and for class shootings and snipings and all that the guns are never going away. Unsolvable. You're never going to solve in the Middle East. So many solutions. Two-state solution, yeah, sure. So we need an intervention and let them come down like the hand of God and show us where it's at. I hope that happens. I really do.
I do too. I want the mothership to show up and
yeah, exactly.
I mean,
Smarten us all up.
Maybe I should be more afraid of all this, but I'm not. I find it very exciting. I love the thought of all this idea of there being no intelligent life except just on this beautiful planet. It's the loneliest thought in the world especially when you look at the images from the Hubble and the Webb telescope.
Oh my God, yeah.
Thousands of exoplanets, and when you and I were growing up, we only knew of the ones that are in this solar system, the usual suspects, Mars, Jupiter, Venus, and on, and poor old Pluto, which never gets any respect. But it just doesn't make any sense to me that could be all there is. And, I hope other people will open their minds to all this, because instead of it being depressing, it should fill you full of wonder. Like, who are we and how do we fit into all of this? And what are we here for? And also, you see, in my department, the big thing that gives me any hope is if there are things that defy our logic, well, maybe that would include death, because death is the biggest downer ever. It might be job security for Scarpetta and maybe even for me, but it's something that nobody can come to terms with in a good way, because, I mean, how can you? Something being over, the end, the loss of yourself, the loss of others.
Grief.
And it's so quick. I mean, how fast time goes. But I believe that we have a very limited understanding of the reality that we live in, just like our bulldog does. Lola thinks she knows everything, but trust me, there's a lot she doesn't understand. And I'd like to believe that there are maybe even other dimensions that we don't know, and that consciousness does not begin and end with our brain. I believe that our brain is a conductor of consciousness. Now, I know there are some scientists who think that way, and then, of course, plenty who don't. But our consciousness, which some people might call our soul or our spirit, I believe it's something separate, and it doesn't die. It does not go away. What happens to it when our biological self, reaches its expiration date? The consciousness goes somewhere, but matter, energy is never created or can't be created or destroyed. And so I do tell people, because I get asked a lot of questions about death, and I do tell people that I don't believe in it. I believe in the death of the body. I know that's going to happen, but I don't believe in the annihilation of who we are. I don't think that happens. I think that somehow, you remember John Mack at Harvard?
I met him and I knew him. Great researcher.
And I don't know if it's a true story, but somebody said that after he very tragically got hit by a car in London and killed, that one of his colleagues had a dream about him. And in the dream, he said, it's not at all what we thought. he'd been pursuing UFOs and extraterrestrials, interviewing all these people who claimed to have been abducted and all that. And so this Harvard scientist or psychiatrist, I believe he was, and now I know that was just a dream, but I suspect there may be some truth in that. I bet you anything when we cross over that we're going to find it's not what we thought. That's something, and I hope it's going to, I have a feeling it might be a very good thing.
Well, we will only know when we get there. And when we get there, I believe that just like you, that this energy, this spark of life, that spark of energy, soul energy or spirit energy does travel to another realm and survives not only as a spark, but it also it keeps alive the consciousness and the identity of the being that had the shell. Because my family are spiritualists. We believe in the Lilydale School of Spiritualism, which is that the consciousness survives after death, as well as identity. And that those consciousnesses and identities of those we love can reach back and touch us in dreams, in premonitions, in active physical acts of apportation, and also, and more importantly, and more, let me say, more easily accessed through the work of great trance mediums. If you have a great trance medium and you sit down with them, they can channel those who you want to reach, or maybe people that you want to reach, but you don't get them, but you get someone else who wants to reach you. They kind of elbow their way through, I've found in some of these instances. I'll reach out to an uncle, and then all of a sudden someone completely different will say, well, I'm taking this channel now to Dan because I want to communicate. And then you hear things that only you and that person could know. So certainly, absolutely, we do survive and go on. The spark goes on. It cannot be destroyed. What is there? What do we picture? A void, heaven, hell? We will only know when we get there. And I'm sure it's not what we expect or not what we picture.
Yeah, well, I feel real optimistic, and and this bit about consciousness, it's interesting because in more in primitive societies, like when the missionaries would go over to the Congo long ago and deal with the indigenous people, and oftentimes they had customs that when somebody died, they would you left the body as it was for at least 24 hours because they weren't sure if that spirit was just hovering nearby. So even in Italy, they would wait 24 hours. They may still before they would do an autopsy because of the question of the flesh is dead, the heart's not beating, there's no brain activity. We know, we know this body is dead, but the person, where are they? And so these beliefs go back a long way, and there are all kinds of different ways that people have dealt with the dead because of their religious and spiritual beliefs about what that might mean. And so that does make you wonder. I mean, you find that the things that we wonder about, it's universal. We're not the only ones who thought about this. It's been thought about forever. And so, and I will tell people, my readers out there, don't get mistaken. My whole book, The New Scarpetta, is not just about UFOs and all that sort of thing, but it's an element of the story because of this person who dies in the weird circumstances. And the fun part is that you get to see what Scarpetta would do in a case like this. And the top secret place at Langley Air Force Base, where she has to conduct this autopsy before a host of people, including the CIA and Space Force and things like that. And I don't know of a place like that at Langley, but that doesn't mean there isn't one. Because I guarantee you there are places somewhere that are dealing with some of these strange things and maybe even storing things that would shock us.
Well, I think it's pretty logical to assume that there is a very deep, dark pool program that has been there for years, in mostly run by the United States government, and maybe you have people who started it have their descendants do it, like you see, like when you'll have a family of cops, the father's a cop, the grandfather was a cop. Well, you'll have people whose whose ancestors or forebears were running it, and maybe they're running it now. So it's like a big family government secret deep pool program. I'm pretty sure they have bodies. I've got a neat story that I've heard from a couple of people. Jackie Gleason was very interested in this subject, and he was a friend of Richard Nixon, and they're playing golf, and he starts to bug Nixon about, hey, pal, tell me, come on, do they have the bodies? Come on, what is this stuff I hear all the time, you know? So he tries to get it out of him, and Nixon, Jackie, play the hole, Jackie, play the hole. But then about, two weeks later, he gets a call, and it's from Nixon. He says, Jackie, listen, just don't ask any questions. I want you to meet me Tuesday night at 8 o'clock in front of your building. Just come down, you alone, you're yourself. And Jackie says, sure. So Tuesday night comes around. Jackie comes down out of his apartment building and comes out to the front foyer. And there's a brand new Lincoln sedan with Nixon driving. No protection, no chauffeur, nobody. Get in, Jackie. And then they go to a military facility nearby. I guess they were in, near Miami, Biscayne Bay. They go to this chain link fence, opens. Nixon, of course, is waved through. He takes Jackie into a building, and they go down into the sub basement, and Nixon throws open this door where there's a couple of people waiting to greet them. And he says, there they are, Jackie. We're asking about the bodies. There they are. 3 humanoid, childlike bodies. And Jackie Gleason's wife said many years later, and she used to talk about it, when Jackie came home from that meeting with Nixon that night, he was passion. Remember how he used to, on honeymooners, he used to go,
Yeah.
He was that shocked by what he'd seen. If nothing else, boy, what an entertaining story. Would make a great play, and maybe even a cool sort of episodic series movie. I don't know. It's very, very funny to think of that. The other thing you were saying, like, who are we? Well, the question for tonight, and I think on this whole subject, is who are they? Who are these super intelligent operators of hyper advanced aerodynamic craft that cannot be built here with no signatures, no propulsion? Who are they? And then why don't some people believe? Well, you have to have skeptics. It's very important. We don't want to believe everything. A lot of hoaxes have been perpetrated in this area over the years. Take, for example, one of the people I most admire on the planet, Neil deGrasse Tyson. This is a brilliant scientist. Neil deGrasse Tyson can't come out now and say, well, UFOs are real, they exist, and, because it goes against all of what he believes in conventional practical science. He's an empiricist. These things, how can they get from planet to planet? How can they go faster than light? But what we need is him and his colleagues might be thinking more about it, how they are doing it. What are their power sources? Is it gravity bubbles? Is it microwaves? Are they coming from black holes or wormholes? It's truly the one of the great mysteries of the age that I think more serious scientific research has to be done on with people who have all the disciplines. Certainly MUFON, Mutual UFO Network, is made up of metallurgists and people in medicine and law enforcement and physiology and physics who are very interested in this subject and have been studying it for years. So they're giving us hope there more than any other organization, I think.
When you talk about the little bodies, and of course, I always see the grays, that's the most common image, the emoji, the teardrop shaped head and the upside down and the huge eyes and these little things.
It's everywhere. That image is everywhere now.
It's everywhere, all around the world. And but my question is, when you think that we send probes into outer space, we send robots, these rovers and these different things that are flying around Mars or tracking through the red dust, what that we control from Earth, that how do we know that some of these things that we've seen like that aren't some kind of probes for them? I mean, humanoid, robotic, some hybridized, something that they send, just like we send things out there that aren't us. I mean, it could be that what might explain why they always seem to look exactly alike in people's descriptions. I don't know.
Well, there's tall grays too, and then there's the the Nordic type, and then there are the reptilians that are spoken of. Again, there's so many different types. It's fascinating, truly, to know that there's these crypto species of creatures that have this technology. So I think the little grays, a lot of people believe they just are minions doing the work of superior beings, and that they really are kind of just little robot like creatures, but organic still with blood and warm beating hearts. But they don't, they don't have a function beyond gathering specimens, simply, like sperm and ova from men and women on the planet, and that's their kind of function. And whoever they work for, that's one of the mysteries.
Well, I'd be happy to meet one if I didn't have a heart attack.
Well, yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. I go, I want to see something, but if I woke up and that little thing was next to my bed, before I could even say nice to meet you, I'd probably be flatlined right on out of there. Because I mean, that's the thing. It's just our nature to be so terrified of anything we don't understand. And the other thing that's interesting, when I was doing the Bigfoot research for the last book, just looking into all of that, and I was looking into some of the stories passed down over the hundreds and hundreds of years with the Native Americans who had, pictographs that would show you Bigfoot. I mean, this creature that's passed down through their lore. And supposedly, sometimes when this Bigfoot creature would come around, they also would see UFOs. What they didn't call them that, of course, back in those days. They referred to the star people. And some of the Native Americans believe that we came from another galaxy.
Many tribes believe that.
That there's, and then think of some of the artwork from long ago that shows very strange things that don't make sense. Things that look like aliens, look like they have some kind of space gear on. So if you really start listening, even the Bible talks about Ezekiel going up in a whirlwind of fire, which could be like a rocket going up. I mean, we don't know long ago what may have visited here and is not so obvious to us now, because we're also a lot more dangerous than we were back then. I mean, we might hit them with a stick, but now there are other things that people can do. But I wish that people could be more open-minded about what they don't understand, because it might not be so frightening if you'd let yourself go a little bit. Like even the whole notion of there being a Bigfoot creature out there. I just say, approach every subject with respect. Maybe it's not true, but if it is, be respectful. Don't go out looking your gun.
Science has to start to devote focus to these subjects. And that's once science starts to do that, more people will have the knowledge and believe. But I think you could pretty much say half of America or Canada, North America, and really the whole Western Hemisphere, take half of the people, they believe these things are real.
Yeah. Well, there's some people that still don't think we've been to the moon, and there's some people that don't believe dinosaurs were real. And guess what? You and I went on a dinosaur dig, and we know dinosaurs are real. We found some of their bones while we were in, Grand
Prairie. And, Patricia, just I think 2 weeks ago, they found a giant pachyrhinosaur head right in the bone bed in Pipestone Creek where we were digging. Yes. Big. They say it weighs 500 pounds.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So that must have been one of the papas that drowned. Yeah, that's right. Well, we know they exist.
A flood, and it wiped out a whole herd of these things.
And they're all stacked up. One of the richest bone beds in the world. So they found this massive skull there a couple of weeks ago.
You were running in and out of the woods pretending to be a T-Rex.
Yeah. Well, I look somewhat like that these days.
No, but
I'm a dinosaur myself.
Well, I'm beginning to feel more like one myself too. So
no, you look great, by the way.
Well, thank you. So do you. And listen, I want to thank you again for reading my book and taking the time to do this. And
sure.
I can't wait to see what you do next. Are you working on another? Will there be another Ghostbusters after the last one, or what's next with you?
I'm on the road as a humble beverage alcohol salesman, working the issue there with our new distributor. And we have this lovely product, of course, no additives, no glyceride, no sugar, no lemonine. It's a beautiful, sweet vanilla tasting vodka. I just my task now to sell it is easy. I go to my salespeople and I say, shake it up, ice chips in a martini glass, up with some chips in there, olive, pearl onion, or a twist. It drinks like water. It's very dangerous. It drinks like water. It's a clean teeny. It's the cleanest martini on the planet. So I'd say you just give it to bar chefs and people, the buyers in retail and on premise, and they try it and it sells itself. So I'm going around the country. I just went to Pennsylvania. I'm headed to Texas, headed to LA, then to Miami. And so my whole rest of the year really will be occupied with meeting the wonderful people in that industry, the legends. And, my job's pretty hard. My head office tells me, okay, you got to go down there. You got to go to DC and you got to stay in a 5-star hotel. And then you got to go to a 5-star steakhouse and you got to have dinner with the executives. And, oh, by the way, it's okay to pick up the dinner, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 for 20, 25, doesn't matter. That's the wonderful thing about beverage alcohol industry. You're always buying these wonderful meals for people and it's deductible.
Well, I do know when I was at your house recently in Canada that he made this drink with Crystal Head vodka and a little glass with ice with fresh tangerine juice. And now you talk about something that's evil. Because that went down. Then we were going to watch that movie, and you wondered why I fell asleep during some of it. But it was fantastic for people who are vodka drinkers. So a lovely, lovely liquor for sure.
Yeah. Well, we work hard on it, and the quality is guaranteed. So
I think Julie, the producer, is back. Hello, Julie.
Hello. I want a drink, and this was the most fascinating conversation we have ever had at Warwick's. It's enlightening. I just was sitting back here the whole time, just like going, oh my God, this is fantastic. I loved every minute of this. Thank you both.
Now you know how Danny was able to come up with Ghostbusters, because he just pretty much admitted he's an extraterrestrial. only a superior being like that could come up with something like Ghostbusters and all the other things he's done.
And making that, I just want to go get I just want one of those clean martinis right now.
Oh yeah, that's the way to do it.
I just want one of those. And Patricia, okay, everybody, we do have signed stock available of Identity Unknown, so please go to Warwick's website and order your copy of that. And Patricia Cornwell, Dan Aykroyd, it was wonderful spending the evening with you tonight.
Well, thank you. It was
Thank you.
lots of fun. Thank you, Danny.
Thank you.
Sure. We'll talk soon, Patricia.
Yes, we
Thanks.
will.
Good
Bye,
night,
Julie.
everybody.
Take care.
Good night.
Okay. Bye.